In this podcast, we'll be talking about whether or not we should arm our teachers.
Hello, my name is Joe Cotton. I'm a middle school education major with an emphasis in science and social studies. I'm a third-year student at the University of Georgia. The reason I wanted to be a teacher is because some of my high school teachers were a big part of my life, big part of my growth, and especially my coaches. And I mainly want to be a high school football coach, but I'm also excited to teach our students as well.
My name is Kaitlynn Smith, and I am a second-year early childhood education major. I wanted to go into education because I was blessed to have an amazing and loving family growing up, as well as having really great teachers. But I know that not every child has that same life, so I wanted to be a teacher so that I could be a person in my students' lives who they could talk to and trust. So I really just want to be a teacher that students will love to have.
Hey, my name is Frances. I'm a senior math and math ed education major. I'm currently student teaching at Madison County High School with 9th grade Algebra 1 students. Once I graduate, I hope to teach high school math somewhere in the Athens area, and I'm just super excited to start my career as an educator.
So, Frances, what was your high school experience like?
I absolutely loved my high school. I went to Savannah Arts Academy, which was a public magnet performing arts high school, so every student had an arts major. I was a dance major, which meant that I took 3 dance classes and 5 academic classes each year, and the atmosphere of my school was just really great because me and all my peers really valued our education and really valued schoolwork, and I think a lot of that was because of the great teachers we had. They just motivated us, inspired us to try our hardest at our academics and our art. And so I think my teachers really motivated me to become an educator because I saw how much they can change lives and how much a teacher can be involved in their students' life and just how great that relationship can. So I've definitely seen a shift in how schools treat security since there have been more school shootings, because I know when I was in high school and middle school, we could just walk right in, didn't have to sign in, and anyone could really access the school from the student parking lot, while at Madison County, which is a school that I'm student teaching, all the doors are locked and there are only a certain number of entrances, which are all can be seen by the security and like secretaries and principals in the main office. And especially, the other day we had a safety drill, and so I know in high school we always had like tornado drills and fire drills that we would prepare for, but last week the students had to do a safety drill where we closed the door and covered all the windows, and all the students got to the back of the class. And it was just a very sobering experience, realizing that this is something that the students have to prepare for and be aware that it can happen any day.
So I went to a large public high school my freshman year of high school, and it was called Sandy Creek High School. Security was always a big thing on my mind because when I'd walk down the halls, I could only see one security guard, and he was not in the best shape, and I don't even know if he carried a gun, and I was always like wondering if something did happen, if we'd be able to prepare or if we'd be able to combat that. And some circumstances happened. I ended up switching high schools. I went to Trinity Christian School for my last 2.5 years of my high school. And again, security was not the best there. We had, again, one guy on campus who had a gun, and in all honesty, I don't know how he would handle the situation had a gunfight broken out.
So, Francis, how much have you previously thought about the issue of arming our teachers?
I never really considered it until this past year when there were so many more school shootings that were happening almost every week. And I really began to think about how I, as a future teacher, would handle a situation like that, and just how scary it must be for teachers to consider that they don't just have to worry about teaching students every day, but also keeping them safe and keeping them protected and making decisions that could save their lives.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was digging into how many school shootings had occurred this year and last, and an article was talking about how there were 65 shootings that were reported on school campuses in the year 2017. That's a lot of school shootings in a year.
Almost one a week.
Almost one a week. And another article wrote, it was written 4 days ago, and it stated that, like, now that we're 312 days into the year, there have already been 307 mass shootings this year. So that's almost one mass shooting a day this year.
So, Francis, what are your current opinions on this issue?
I currently believe that they should not arm teachers. I know personally I would not feel comfortable wielding, is that the right word?
Sure.
I know I would not feel comfortable having a gun and would not feel comfortable using that gun. And I just believe that arming teachers is not the answer to this problem. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. And just saying that, oh, we can give teachers a gun and that will fix this issue, I don't think that's the answer. I think instead we need to build positive relationships with our students and make sure that every student has a teacher that they feel comfortable coming to and just talking about their daily problems and issues with. And I think that school is supposed to be an environment that's positive and nurturing. I don't think that students will feel comfortable knowing that their teachers have a gun in their classroom.
All good points. So in thinking about that and, the amount of school shootings that there are, what are some ways that you think we could make our schools safer?
I think we could increase security, have more security guards, possibly use metal detectors as students enter and leave school, and additionally making sure that there are a limited amount of entrances to schools. Also, I know at the school that I'm student teaching at, when classes start, all the doors are closed and they're all locked so that no one can enter them unless they're in the class.
So, what does your current ideal school environment look like?
I think that school should be a place where students are comfortable, feel welcome, feel accepted, aren't afraid to be themselves, and can really focus in on learning. And so I don't think that, in an ideal world, a school wouldn't be a place where students should be scared to go to or anxious about because they're worried for their life.
So would you say that arming teachers would harm that idea?
I personally believe that it will affect the relationship between teachers and students, because if students know that their teachers have a gun, it kind of creates a tension, because the students would feel like the teacher doesn't trust them and is worried for their own safety, and I just don't think it would create a positive learning environment for all students.
So, Francis, what needs to be changed if we don't arm our teachers?
I think there are a couple of options that would be more beneficial. I think we could increase security, like I mentioned earlier, with metal detectors and limited entrances and exits. I also just think schools need to work to create environments where students don't have a desire to hurt other students, and create a culture that accepts everyone regardless of their differences and weird personalities and quirks, I guess, and just consciously move towards accepting all students.
So, another big reason Kaitlynn and I chose this topic is because school security is so important. As future teachers, we think that our entire role is just to teach the kids to be done, but there's so much more to it, especially in circumstances where lives are endangered. Our role is to keep these kids safe, and especially in middle school and high school years. As we see from like past shootings, the shooters are usually adolescent males because males have much higher testosterone levels and they take bullying a little too far. And as we know from psychology class that the brain doesn't fully develop until you're in your early 20s. So guys in their middle school and high school years, they don't really think about the outcome of what they're doing. And I've seen this in my own life. I've seen this in the lives of family members around me, just doing dumb things and not actually thinking about the outcome. And in a more severe circumstance, an adolescent male with a gun is a recipe for disaster. And as future teachers, we need to shut it down wherever we can.
So, Joe, what would arming teachers look like, do you think?
So, I'm not going to take a stance on either side, whether we do arm teachers or not. I think there are pros and cons to both sides. Okay, I will take a stand. I don't think we should arm teachers, but if we do arm them, there are a lot of things to think about, like where does the gun go? Are we putting it in a safe? Who has the passcode to the safe? What happens if a student gets the passcodes to the safe? All these things are being brought up, and what Francis was bringing up with the teacher being a safe environment for the kids, you don't want the kids coming to school being afraid of their teachers. That is the worst thing you want to happen. You want them to come to a safe environment where they want to learn, and if the teacher has a gun and could potentially kill them, if they're doing something wrong, they might feel a little scared. And I found a little quote on Twitter. Somebody was jokingly, but also serious. This is the parents speaking. What if we're, not terribly comfortable with training our teachers how to quickly and effectively kill our children? And that is a very thought-provoking quote. We don't want to train our teachers to kill our children. That's always the last resort. There are many other things to take into account when talking about arming teachers. They obviously have to be well suited for carrying a gun. They have to know what they're doing. You can't just give somebody a gun if they don't know what they're doing with it, because they're going to hurt themselves or hurt others. A gun is a very useful tool when handled correctly, but there have been very drastic outcomes when people who don't know what they're doing handling a gun handles it the wrong way.
Okay, so like on the other side of this, what do you think it would look like if teachers did not carry guns?
So again, I'm more for teachers not carrying guns, and I'll give you my reasons why. So I personally think there are so many retired veterans out there who need jobs, and as I discussed earlier, the security at my previous schools and talking to other people about their high school experiences, school security is not the best, not always the best. And I personally think there need to be more security guards. In a way, we could do that without having the students feel threatened by their teachers is by hiring veterans who have the training and who have handled guns, and put them in the halls at school. Hire them as a janitor, and obviously some veterans don't have they aren't mentally stable, so we would definitely have to do like extensive background checks and mental health tests. But if they are mentally healthy and want to protect these kids, I say, like, by all means, hire them. And something that I was thinking of, this is a little invention that might sound a little cheesy, but so back in the day, I would watch these movies, James Bond, and James Bond always had this pistol that was designed specifically to recognize his fingerprint or handprint. And we have that technology today in our iPhones, the little fingerprint recognition. I don't know why we can't implement that in guns, and so that if a child does get a hold of a gun, he can't shoot it because it doesn't match his print that's specifically designed for that person. So that was just a thought of mine. I think it would be very cool to see that kind of technology placed in guns so that they aren't handled incorrectly. Another thing, as Francis mentioned, I think metal detectors would be very good to have on campus. And there are always ways around these things, but the more safety practices you implement, the better the children are. So I think hire more security guards, use metal detectors, and make sure your students know how to prepare for an attack. I think there should be multiple exits to a classroom just in case, or like a safe room that you can run to and lock from the inside. And there are many things you can do with this, but that is my take on that situation. So a big part of this project is relating this topic to diversity and how it positively affects diversity. It was really hard to think of how arming teachers or not arming teachers relates to diversity. But as we were thinking, I think the best thing that it would incorporate is if we don't arm teachers and if we actually harm veterans instead. I think that if we don't arm teachers and we arm veterans instead, that bringing these male figures into a school environment will positively impact students, especially if students don't have a father figure in their family. I think it's always good to have male figures in a school environment.
Thank you, Francis, for joining us.
Thanks. It was a pleasure talking about this issue with y'all. I had a great time.